Welcome to you, the soon-to-be smartest marketer in the room. Coming up on today's fantastic show, DoorDash is turning into yet another converted advertising platform. Rumble in the concrete jungle, Coca-Cola's ad business is up for review again. And we're following up on Starbucks' Trenta PR blunder in South Korea. All that, plus Ohio University's Professor Dr. Jacob Hiler on his innovative Influencer 101 class that we covered a few episodes ago. If you work in the stovepipes of marketing, advertising, or comms, give us 10 minutes, and then you're 10 minutes closer to being the GOAT. Let's go. Welcome to your summer intern's favorite show about marketing. My name is Matthew Newell, and boy, do we have a special show for you today. But first,
I'm Chris Stone, and before Matthew gets to the news, let's please welcome Professor Hiler to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate the invite.
Jacob, it is a pleasure to have you here. We'll do full introductions right after our headlines. Here is everything you need to know about Rufus, the Bobcat's favorite show about marketing. Today's lead headline: DoorDash is no longer positioning ads as a side business. The company has formally rebranded DoorDash Ads as a global commerce media platform aiming to compete with the other retailers / now advertiser giants like Amazon, Instacart, Walmart Connect, and Uber Eats. The platform reaches more than 400,000 advertisers across DoorDash. They're using Wolt and Deliveroo, giving brands a single system to run campaigns across North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, et cetera, and which is even more head-blowing, DoorDash is expanding beyond ads inside its own app through its acquisition of Symbiosis, spelled in a way that you would never guess, by the way. Advertisers can now use DoorDash shopper data to run campaigns across search, social, display channels, etc. Why should marketers care about this? This is another signal that retail media networks are becoming major competitors to traditional advertising platforms. DoorDash isn't just selling delivery anymore. It's selling access to purchase what they say are purchase-ready consumers, improving whether ads actually lead to sales. Gentlemen, this is a big shift in their business model. What do you think?
I mean, congrats, DoorDash. Now the delivery app's doing retail media's job and calling it not a side hustle. Next up, it'll bill you for the warm bag. I don't know. What do you think, Jacob?
I think that my big concern is I hope that a lot of the small businesses on the platform of DoorDash will have the financial resources to be able to actually promote their brands well, because as we've seen with things like ghost kitchens and other nonsense like that, I would like to find a local restaurant in my area, not the 27th rebranded version of Red Robin. Obviously it's great for DoorDash and DoorDash's business, but at the same time, it'll stand the test of time to see whether or not this actually is an improvement for the consumer experience, because that's what I'm always most concerned with. So,
great call.
We just lost Red Robin as a sponsor. Thanks.
Sorry. I could have said Chili's, but I like chili, so
He loves the baby back ribs.
Next up in our marketing news queue, this is the World Cup of advertising accounts. When Coca-Cola moves its media business, every major holding company pays attention. So Coca-Cola is putting up their business between two heavyweights, WPP, formerly known as Washington, Prince and Plinko, and Publicis Group, with the winner gaining influence across dozens of international markets. The price is enormous. Coca-Cola spends roughly $5.4 billion on advertising in 2025, making it one of the biggest agency reviews on the planet. Just to put in that perspective, when I was this is public information, so I'm not violating any confidential trusts or anything. When I was at State Farm, think about how much you see State Farm advertising. We were at 1.3 billion at the time, and Coca-Cola just turns and burns 5.5 billion every year. So the review isn't about buying ads anymore. This is the most interesting shift. Coca-Cola says data science, technology, and emerging agentic AI tools will be center to whichever agency wins the next 5-year contract. Gentlemen, I want to hear your thoughts. My first thought is everyone's picturing a Don Draper moment of this pitch, but it is not, considering this is all going to be about data science. It is not going to look like that at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like Coke's $5.4 billion bake-off just comes down to whoever brings the shiniest AI to the pitch. Yeah, nothing sells more sugar water like an algorithm that swears it understands joy. Cheers.
I believe it's happiness is the tagline.
It's happiness. Right.
Happiness. That's right. That's
open happiness. As someone who used to do research with Coke in my professional experience from the
nice
consumer research side. Coke's obviously an amazing brand, obviously incredible, but at the same time, Coke's kind of one of those brands that's in that space where I always say, like, don't crash the car. Like, just what you can do nothing and sell billions of Coca-Cola products. Now, obviously, your new brands, you're not mainline Coca-Cola brands, like, need advertising and need awareness brought to them. But I always say, like, with Oreos, it's like, what's your job as a brand manager of Oreo? Just don't crash the car, right? And with the thing, I'm obviously a supporter of using AI as a tool and of different things, as our next story I'm sure we'll allude to. But at the same time, when you really think about Coca-Cola in their use of AI, because they were one of the ones pioneering some of this stuff, at least publicly, with the Christmas ad.
Yep.
And being very proud and actually acknowledging that it was created with AI.
Yep.
It didn't seem to go over too well. I think I'm always interested in the consumer response to things, and it'll be interesting to see how consumers respond to the use of AI. Because I think that if they can't tell a difference, right? If there's not that uncanny valley, if there's not that, it's just a well-produced ad, just like any other tool that you'd use, like After Effects or whatever tool that you're using, I think consumers will accept it, right? Or if it's something new and novel that they wouldn't have seen. But just advertising the fact that you're using AI is not the right tool to go, not the right path to go down. So It'll be interesting to see. I know Coke's got a lot of smart people there, and I'm sure that they're going to make good decisions. But I'm really interested to see where this goes in the future, because I think that they could really peel back their advertisement and do just fine. Yeah, but that's that wouldn't benefit all the agencies and everything else out there. So
and I just love that Coca-Cola. I mean, even when you go back to the literally 100 years ago now, they've always been an innovative advertiser, and not innovation just in terms of concepting, innovation in terms of platforms. Radio. Roadside. I mean, they've been doing this stuff for years. So even if I love that they're testing, even if there was pushback. And then our final headline: a single marketing promotion wiped out months of brand building in a matter of hours. As we talked about last week, Starbucks Korea tried to launch a tank day promotion that backfired because it touched South Korea's deepest historical wounds, linking a Tank Day promotion to the anniversary of the 1980 Gwangju massacre. In the week since we covered this story, the spending at that Starbucks chain has dropped 26%. Week over week. That is not an accident. That is breaking the bell curve. They're trying to push some of the blame to AI. The local franchisee said marketers used AI tools to help generate some of the language. But the fallout went beyond social media. The CEO was fired, as we covered. What we didn't cover was government agencies suspended partnerships with Starbucks, and police opened investigations into senior executives. It's becoming a case study in modern brand risk. One overlooked cultural detail amplified by social media, triggering consumer boycotts. Gentlemen, this one I did not see. I just thought this was interesting enough when we covered it last week to just say, hey, let's be a little more sensitive and have a little bit more human oversight. But literally, people are looking at going to jail over this one. What do you think?
It's funny how AI gets blamed, but it was there's a room full of humans there who all clicked approve without maybe ever opening the attachment. Listen, if anything, if we're looking at it, like humans do better here, right? And really sort of, listen, we're all fans of AI, just like Jacob talked about here, but, let's not just rubber stamp this stuff and think that everything that it's churning out is okay. And I have a feeling like that whole AI blame thing, I don't know what you feel like, Jacob, it's kind of like that seemed really convenient for someone to blame that. I mean, they're still responsible for it, right?
I would think so. I mean, letting AI make all your marketing decisions for you is a bold strategy, Cotton. I mean, let's see how it works out for them. So, like, I mean,
right.
as you said, Chris, it demonstrates why you still need a human in the chain, right? Because a human being is going to be the people who are reacting to this stuff. And, as much as we can maybe simulate how human beings would react using AI and whatnot, like there's certain little nuances and things that'll just, come into play and impact stock prices and companies' futures wildly, and the things that you can't predict. And the example I always use in my class is that Peloton ad from a few years back, and that wasn't made with AI, but I mean, the actress, good for her. She got another ad out of it with Ryan Reynolds' company, but at the same time, like, you feel bad for her because she got turned into a meme overnight because the director chose to use a shot of her face that looked like she was a hostage in a hostage video. Yeah. And I thought the most offensive thing about that ad was Tal Bachman's "She's So High." But, song from my midwinter dance in, 2000, it lost them 1.3, I think, billion in valuation overnight. Right. So, I mean,
that's right.
And that ad was very minor, but just, the things that would offend people were just very minor and kind of there on the surface. But, if you showed 5 people, 10 people that, like, you would have known, just like with this. If a human being had looked at that, especially one in South Korea where that, event has serious cultural significance, that never would have gotten pulled through. So yeah, it's convenient that AI is a scapegoat for just bad human decision making.
Well, before I get to my next comment, now seems like as good a time as any to formally introduce Dr. Hiler. Our guest for the remainder of the show, or for all of the show, is Professor Dr. Jacob Hiler. He is a Fox Associate Professor of Marketing at Ohio University. He's also the Executive Director for the Center for Consumer Research and Analytics. The reason why we asked him to be on the show, and he so graciously accepted, is roughly a month ago, we covered, he is doing a show. I'm not sure if it's called Influencer 101. I'm sure there's a fancier name than that. But at his university, he is he's running that show. So before I get to my first question, though, I did want to say we're at the point of AI marketing, Jacob. You made us laugh when you said it's a bold strategy to let AI, if I right now had to choose between a semi-irresponsible 17-year-old running my marketing in AI, I'm still going for the 17-year-old right now, at least for now. So you make a great point.
Assistance, but it's a like with anything, like with every technology, it's a tool that can be helpful, but at the end of the day, like, you have to have a human being understanding how these things might play to another human being. So
that's exactly right. Well, one of the things as we talk about your class, one of the things that I loved, and the second I read the breakdown of the class itself, I knew it was legit. So this is what I want you to kind of expand the 3 pillars and why you chose each of these, because as I go through these for our viewers and listeners, think about how different each of these skill sets are. So So Jacob's course is broken up into the psychology of influence, the technical side of content creation, and then the business side of building a brand and running a business, I would assume.
So we didn't have a class like this. I won one of the university professor awards in, I forget which year it was, like 2021, 2022, something like that. And, it's a big honor at our university to be selected for that award. But, along with that award came the opportunity to develop a class. I always say it came with more work. It was like, surprise, here's an award, develop a new course. But I got full reign to pick the course that I wanted to develop and kind of make it from scratch. And that's part of the benefit of that. And, as I was looking at the landscape and, from my own experience, it was like, what are we missing in the marketing department curriculum? Because I didn't want to just make something that was some random, singular topic that was just a passion project for me, though this certainly was that. That was going to be a one and done and never come back. I wanted to make something that had continual value for our department and help this change and evolve with the times, because, like virtually every marketing program across the country, they're teaching a curriculum from 40 years ago. I mean, we're still talking about integrated marketing communications and, things that are super important, especially in today's landscape. But, 4 Ps and consumer decision-making model only take you so far. And I think we needed something that really captured all of that. So when I was creating this course, I was like, man, this could be an entire major, an entire, 4-year curriculum, but I get one class. What can I do in one class that will give, our students at least a good running head start and a good overview of kind of the whole chain of the process. So that's where, the 3 parts of the class kind of came in was, I think students really need to understand things like, why do people watch someone on Twitch more than they watch, a full Netflix produced documentary or, movies that just released? Like, I love the Masters of the Universe movie that just came out. It was fun for me as a child of the 80s, but at the same time, there's more people watching a random YouTuber than there is that went out to see that, hundreds of millions of dollar budget movie at the movie theater. And, understanding why that is, understanding things like parasocial relationships, understanding, how platforms differ across, how each platform has a very different kind of top set of creators and what the stories of each one of those platforms tells. And, just really understanding the baseline of, okay, why do people connect with this? And then the second part is all the technical stuff. So when I started the class, I already knew how to video edit and everything, but I went through and I learned, I think 7 or 8 different video editing programs and said, okay, which one's the most accessible and which one's the most platform neutral and which one's, something that they can grow and scale with. And so, I ended up with DaVinci Resolve. Now it's kind of shifted a little more to CapCut. Because I did, as someone who learned primarily in Final Cut and iMovie, as a Mac person, it's great for me, but it doesn't help the people who have a PC. Yeah. I'm not going to go tell them to buy a Mac. Going through all the technical details of okay, how do you edit something together? How do you, what's the difference between retention editing and, grandpa vlogging and all of those different styles, right? To be able to kind of make the right content decisions for the students. And then the business side, obviously, that speaks for itself, right? It's how do you monetize this? How do you turn this into a sustainable business over time? What a brand, how do you reach out to brands? How do you work with brands? How do you get those deals? That type of stuff. So it's really like a carpet bomb of everything. It's not quite, a tactical strike, but at the same time, it I think covers everything and gives everybody a running head start to have what they need to kind of really understand what it means to be an influencer in today's world, which funny enough, I always say influencer is the dirty word. Nobody actually gets into this to want to be an influencer. They get into this to want to be a content creator. And then influencer is just the unfortunate byproduct of being a content creator and being able to support yourself over time. Yep. But it's the way the world works and it's what you got to do. And there's a way to make that mutually beneficial for everybody, for the brands, for the content creator. And, I see a better path forward than kind of what we're doing right now, which is very transactional, which is very you say script, I pay you money, deal's over, deal's done, right? Like there is a much healthier, mutually beneficial process that can happen with that. And I hope that that's, what I'm training my students to do, is to understand the potential of, the unrealized benefits that companies are receiving could receive from their creator partners and their audiences.
Yep.
Because as a consumer researcher, they have access to an audience. You can get unfiltered feedback. If you actually incorporate that into your process, that's invaluable, right? Like I know how much a market
100%.
research project costs.
Oh my goodness. Such a good point.
They have hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, and you're able to, get this from a larger audience set. And then too, the brand is basically buying authenticity from their content creators, right? They're buying the relatability and authenticity. And the thing I always say in my class is that you're actually kind of like, the more brand deals you take, the more you're corrupting your own authenticity. So you're actually kind of like capping off your ability to earn and generate, because you're hurting your long term if you take too many brand deals too early, because then people just see you as, a shill for XYZ brand.
Right. Wow.
And at the same time, how do you make that not appear that way? And that's, I think, as a brand, you let your content creator be more authentic in what they have to say, to not play the games of like access review. I always call it access reviewing, but you say access journalism. So you say the wrong thing, you don't get the free movie ticket, you don't get the press pass the next time you go. They have a premiere or something like that, right? If you're just a little too negative, they won't tell you what to say, but they'll cut that ticket off the next time. So
money changes everything, right? Once that transaction happens, though, it's like, I know we said you could be free to say this, that, and the other, and stay true to your brand, but we do want you to mention this, this, and this, and we didn't like how you said that. That kind of stuff is crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a tale old as time. Brand managers back in the day like to have control over their message, with an iron fist. But, learning to let go of that a little bit and learning to create trust the creator, I think will actually benefit both the creator and the brand long term, because then it will be truly more authentic, right? And then, from an audience perspective, if the audience feels like they can actually have a voice through that creator to the brand to change or improve the product in what way they want to have, then the audience will kind of see the value in that relationship too, not just be like, all right, it's time to go to my frequently skipped section on YouTube and just skip over that ad that they paid, a few $1,000s for.
I love the fact that those three pillars that you talk about, each solve very specific issues for someone who's wanting to get into this, because the psychology of influence, it's like, there's just lack of knowledge and experience there when you're just starting that. So I understand that. The technical side of content creation with the content creators that I work with, for doing remote production, podcast production, the technical side just stops people from creating altogether. They become disinterested, they become less passionate about doing it, and then they quit. So it's important to kind of like go, hey, I can show you some of how this stuff works a little bit, so it's not, you can get out of your own way and feel free to create the best way you possibly. And then the business side of it, especially dealing with brands, is a huge thing that feels very much like influencer on one side of the wall, brand on the other side of the wall. Let's throw the content over the wall and send smoke signals to each other to figure out what you want, and actually creating a deal around that.
The one thing I forgot to mention about my class is really built around a project, a semester-long project too. The first part of the project is really just coming up with your idea. It's ideating around, an idea for whatever that the student's passionate about, so they can take whatever topic that they want and kind of build, the personality of the brand and build the personality of the show and the format and all of that. And then part two is they have to make their first round of content. And, I told them, I'm not grading you on this. Like, I want you to take risk. I'm grading you on whether or not you do it. I don't want you to have the fear of failure. So just like try to push, as hard as you can into making like whatever it is that you want to make. And I'm like, you're going to fall flat on your face. But the only way that you can learn what works for your process is by trying and failing. Right. And so I want, the reason I don't grade that one for like how good it is, I just grade it as to whether or not they did it. And then I ask them to do a reflection and just be like, be brutally honest with yourself and be like, what didn't you like doing? What did you like doing? What were you good at? what would you like to get better at? Like just so that they can have and I'm like, you can write this as a bullet point. I don't care. Like just document for yourself, what worked for you in the process, what didn't work for you. If you're like, I hate being in front of camera, great. That now you can do something behind camera, right? Like, or you can do a faceless channel or something like that. And then the last one is they have to put together their full media kit, business plan, and a round of content that I'm actually going to grade, right? In terms of quality. That's also why the 3 sections of the course kind of like work out that way too. But yeah, the interesting thing about my student base though is you were talking about this too, Chris, is most of them are not like wanting to be influencers, which is
really
so surprising to me. Because when
interesting. So are they taking it out of curiosity then?
I think a lot of them are taking it because they watch TikTok and they are like, oh, it's a class about TikTok. This sounds better than, marketing analytics or, whatever. Like I always say, like I used to teach market research and consumer research. Well, I still teach consumer research, but it's always like, that's the class where they're like, wait, there's math and marketing? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's right.
And they're like, I took this to stay away from math.
100%.
So some of it's a little bit like that, but because I initially expected a lot of people to be in my class to be like, I want to be the next Mr. Beast or Charlie D'Amelio or whatever. Like it actually is a lot of people who want to work with influencers once they kind of realize that that's what the class is about. And I think really understanding that. And I just recently did an interview with Net Influencer, and they were asking me like, oh, so like why are your students who are not wanting to be influencers like working on a project? And I'm like, because it's important for them to know the work that goes into it. Because I think one of the big misnomers is that, I mean, everything from photography to scripting to, if you're letting them write their own ad, like there's all these things that you're providing a lot of value in. And I think, if you're going to go work on the brand side, it's better for you to understand like, hey, this isn't just some kid doing whatever in the basement. Like they're providing a lot of value in a lot of different avenues that you would pay an agency or another company a lot of money to do. So, making everyone go through that process is really, I think, enlightening for them, because it's like, oh, like there's a lot that you have to manage and learn and a lot of different skills you have to balance in this, as a solo creator.
Isn't it a lot like where you see former players become coaches or become managers or become general managers, and end up in executives at a particular, team, even though they had played the game, they've carried the bag, they understand everything that, and the inner workings, they have the relationships, right? All of those things that are important as an influencer. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to wake up and click on the camera and just create, and then it's all just going to fall in place. Like there is real structure, real business behind all of it. And so they're discovering in the class where maybe they want to fit in. Maybe they did think that they wanted to be a creator, and maybe after going through the technical side, they're like, I really kind of like doing this video editing stuff and working with CapCut and working with these things and creating something for someone else. And I think that's equally important work.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about college too, I mean, that's kind of the value of college, right? Is it gives people that time to explore and really get into all the nuance of all these different jobs and career paths that you're trying to go down. And, since we, like I said, we can make we can make a certificate or a full major around influencer marketing if we really wanted to. But at the same time, like I hope that my class gives people that ability to do exactly what you said, figure out, and I've had a number of students say that they're like, I thought I wanted to be in front of camera. I don't like doing it, but hey, I really love video editing, or I really love scripting, or I really like building the graphics for the brand, or being the manager for an influencer and being the one reaching out to and getting all these deals. Like there's a lot of different, skill sets and career paths and different things that are needed. Like, and I think that that's cool because, especially in the early days of content creation, it was you and a buddy or you by yourself, and you're just like, okay, I got to learn how to do all this stuff, but now that you can have a network and a team, it definitely helps quite a bit. So.
Well, and I'm going to go so far as to say, if a company is big enough to have a full-time marketing position, regardless of what the focus of that marketing position is, you're 95 out of 100 times influencer marketing is going to be on your checkbook, so to speak, in some way, shape, or form. And then once you start the bigger the company gets, the more it's just inevitable that, and I would even put some categories, some business categories that if you're not involved in influencer marketing, you're dead in the water. I mean, just take cosmetics. I mean, but done. If you're not doing influencer marketing, thank you. Like these, it is sink or swim. Whereas I think some, I'll pick on my old employer, State Farm. They get in, they get out. It's not gonna make or break their companies. You talk a lot about authenticity in creator culture. Why do audiences often trust someone filming in their bedroom more than the multi-million-dollar brand campaigns?
The thing I always say about this generation, this generation of college students, right, is that they have a very refined BS meter, like a BS detector. And it's much better than like even mine was, or my grandparents was, like, because they're exposed to so much stuff, all the time, right? And they can sense when something's off, when something's scripted, when something's, too perfect, right? And for me, as someone who loves the artistry of filmmaking and cinema and all that different type of stuff, like, and I'm into cinematography, and like I'm like, why they choose to use that focal lens or whatnot. Like, I'm a nerd like that, but most of them, and that stuff matters to me. But at the same time, when a young person's watching it, those things are actually like sometimes even a detriment to the content they're watching.
Wow.
If you think about why TikTok is so popular, it's because it's imperfect. It's because and there's rough edges. Doesn't mean that it's not well done in the way that it's done, but it's a very different format than someone like me who loves watching a well-edited video essay on YouTube. That's my content, home. Like I'll watch a 45-minute, video essay or a technical, like lesson on camera work or whatever, like I'll watch that stuff for 50 minutes. But a kid doesn't want to watch that because it honestly feels artificial to them. And so
it's more relatable.
It's more relatable, right?
Yeah.
And that's, that's kind of the antithesis of what advertising and marketing has been for so long. Has been, it's been snappy, punchy, quick message. And it's, if you even just look at podcasts, I mean, why do people want to listen to long form podcasts? It's because it's hard to BS around, a long form podcast, right? It's
such a good point.
You're gonna say something stupid in 2 hours, but that's being human, right? Like being human is saying something stupid 50 times a day and just learning to roll with the punches and learning and growing from it. And that's what people kind of like and crave. It's like, I love a good movie. I love a well-crafted story. I love a well-crafted show, and people still do, right? But you look at things that resonate with people. That one of the content creators I bring up on TikTok is a woman by the name of Risa Tisa. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she had this series where it was just her doing her makeup in her bathroom or driving to work in her car, like terrible camera angles, terrible lighting, everything. And her whole thing was, who the F did I marry? Like my story of marrying a pathological liar. And it got millions of views like overnight. And it was this 45-part like short form story TikTok.
Wow.
I'm sure that she was just telling a story, right? And she was very good at telling a story, right? I don't know if she's embellishing parts of it, like we all do. We all embellish parts of different stories and whatnot. But it was the lowest quality production you could imagine. It was just iPhone, propped up probably against a makeup bottle or something, like on the car dashboard, like the car's shaking and she's just telling the story, right?
Angle up her nostrils, probably.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That was probably half the videos. But people loved it. People were riveted in the story that she had to tell, right? Because embellished or not, it felt real. People could connect with it. It was relatable in a way that, she was telling the story that I'm sure a lot of people, unfortunately, have also kind of experienced in their own life. And it's kind of this cathartic experience, right? And when you try to make that I always say like Marvel humorish, like you try to like, give this punchy, witty humor type of thing. It people kind of go, oh, like you were thinking about that ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that brands are really struggling with right now. It's like, how do you strike a balance where you don't let people go too wild and too crazy and say something that can be potentially damaging to your brand? But how do we pare back the previous perfection of the message and the cinematography, and we let go of some of that, creative control, and in a way that's just new, right? It seems lower quality, but it's actually more relatable in a way.
It's so crazy balance, right? So are you seeing any brands that you feel like are doing it right? They're not necessarily like, oh, there's a little too, this is too nice here, this is too perfect here. We on this show we talk about what Wendy's is doing on social media, and all of these sort of things. Those are the obvious ones. Any ones that come to mind for you that you feel like are doing it the right way?
The one that pops into my mind is it's actually kind of an older example, but they've been partnered with this creator. I don't know if you ever heard of the Nostalgia Critic. I don't know if you ever watched any of his content. He's an OG YouTube creator. Been around a long time. Really awkward kind of guy, but has a certain sense of humor that really appeals to his audience. There's an example I use in my class where he's had a long-term partnership with stamps.com. And stamps.com lets him do what he wants to do. And he mercilessly makes fun of the brand, makes fun of the fact that it's an ad. He also does ones with like HelloFresh and I think a few others. He is just like, I hate that this is an ad. Why are you reading it this way? And I show this awkward as hell, like 90-second like ad to my class. I'm like, do you think that the stamps.com ever worked with him again? And everyone's like, no. And I'm like, they've been working with him for 3 years because clearly it's converting sales, right?
Right.
And the reason it's converting sales is because, it connects, the humor connects with his audience. You sitting at stamps.com corporate might not get the humor, but his audience does, right?
Right.
And
your BS meter is not breaking itself, you know?
It's the ad is almost so ridiculous that you're like, okay, I'm probably revealing too much about myself, but I'm also a big wrestling fan. So I listen to Jim Cornette's podcast quite a bit.
Yeah.
And Jim Cornette does the craziest ad reads I've ever heard in my life. It's all audio. It's all audio. Just look up Jim Cornette ad reads and you'll find something. It's all audio. There's no video to it. And I forget when there was Mint Mobile was like, well, we've got a club and they're going to beat you over the head with the club and drag you and make you buy a Mint Mobile. And the other guy's like, no, they're not going to do that. They're not. And it's maybe a little scripted, right? Like it's almost too good to where it's could it not be scripted? But sometimes it goes on for 3 to 5 minutes and you're just like, it's so ridiculous that you're locked in. And I'm like, I'm listening to an ad because I'm amused by the fact that they're making fun of the fact that it's an ad.
Right. And the brand gets, especially in the stamps.com example, the brand almost gets credibility from the audience. Like they're letting him crap on you. So
that's confidence.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
right.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's and in a way too, it's a technique I like to use in my class sometimes too, called 8-miling, where it's like I make fun of myself quite a bit. And I sorry, it's a spoiler for the movie 8 Mile, but he wins the rap battle by making fun of himself and taking all the ammunition away from Clarence, right?
Shout out to B Rabbit. Shout out to B Rabbit.
That's right.
And I'm like, it's kind of like that effect, right? Where it's like, if you're a brand and you're able to like make fun of yourself and make fun of the fact that you're an ad, you can't do this all the time, right? Because then people get sick of it. But at the same time, like, I feel like when I see something like that work, it's when the brand really goes, your audience, as you as the creator, your audience, do what works for your audience, right? Sure. If you while out a little bit too much, maybe we'll rein it in a little bit. But, I think most of the time creators aren't going to do that anyway, because, they have an audience to protect too, and they're not going to do something that off-puts their audience. So, having a little more trust in that relationship is something that I think a lot of brands need to do with their content creator partners. And I've heard horror stories too, where a brand wants like final edit and wants to do something, and then a video doesn't get put out until like the whole news cycle and the whole cultural zeitgeist dies like a month later. And then they get mad at the content creator because the video doesn't perform well. And it's like, you're the reason the video didn't perform well. If you just let them say what they wanted to say and like not micromanage the whole process, like it would have been out at the right time, you know? So,
I have been, admittedly, I've been guilty on the brand side of that conversation.
Yeah.
So looking ahead 3 to 5 years, what do you think changes most in the influencer space as AI algorithms, content saturation, et cetera, continue to evolve?
as someone who has a lot of fun with AI and sees the potential in it, right? Like I mess around a lot with Suno and a lot of other stuff with music production and whatnot. And I think Suno is one of the best AI platforms because it passes what I call like the audio Turing test, right?
Yes.
It's one of those ones where it's like, if I can use ChatGPT to write lyrics for a song and train it to learn like, musical styles and everything like that. And then I put it into this, you would never know. Like I started my class playing nothing but AI music ahead of time. Like, did anyone know? No. I think from a consumer perspective, there are a lot of people that from an audience side that are like, I don't want to watch anything that's AI. I don't want to listen to AI slop, is the term that's thrown out there quite a bit.
Right.
And it's slop when people notice that it's AI, right? Then when it doesn't produce any additional value that a human being couldn't produce, right? Like that's when people get upset with it.
Or trying to trick you that it actually was human created. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And people don't like to be deceived. But I think, if you look at, YouTube and TikTok, one of the things I hear from my students who are more on TikTok, I'm more of a YouTube person, is that you see, especially on shorts, just how much like AI slop, I'll use it in the proper term, at least what I feel like is the proper term. And, it's usually just some like movie review thing where it's like XYZ, like someone said this and then this, and, like, it's not a this, but it's a that, everyone's gotten, used to that kind of copy where it's like, it's not a this, but it's this, like right. That AI loves their comparisons in writing. And people get kind of sick of that. And then I hear from my students, how annoyed they are now with TikTok Shop. So TikTok Shop was huge just like a year ago. And now, because there's a lot of money to be made, and their whole feed is just nothing but TikTok Shop, and they're annoyed with it.
Yep.
And, it makes me think of, like what the president of AMA said a number of years ago at our campus, like marketers are like Pepe Le Pew. Like they're always chasing the cat, and the cat never wants nothing to do with them. The cat's the customer, right? And like, he's like, whoever solves that, that process is going to be a very rich person, because like that's been the story of marketing since its inception, right?
Yeah.
But the thing with AI and with content oversaturation and stuff like that is, I wonder if these platforms are either going to change their policies around AI and AI usage, or they're going to, I always say, like, would you guys subscribe to a platform that did not allow any form of AI, right? That was just real people telling real stories, or, like making art or whatnot. And a lot of young people seem very interested in that. And I think if one of these big platforms moves in that direction and says, like, we're going to, one of the beautiful things about the social platforms is that they're heavily non-curated, right? Like they're not Netflix, and they're not gate-kept, right?
Nor are some of the content creators, like Spotify, for instance, right? So you're listening to something, and all of a sudden you realize it's AI, or maybe you don't realize that it's AI, and now 30% or more content every day being uploaded to Spotify is AI generated. And but to your point, there are other services like Deezer. It's based over in France, another music streaming service that actually has AI detection built into it. And so they're starting to see that. And now you're seeing, in relation to music, we covered this band on the show. Have you heard of Angine de Poitrine? Which is
I haven't.
No. Okay. So it's a duo of microtonal, art rock, right? Which right now can't be replicated. It's so crazy. But everyone they have this huge buzz about them. Of course, they wear crazy outfits and polka dots and have huge noses and this whole thing. And they're getting monstrous buzz. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's something that is real. Like it can't be replicated.
That's right.
People seem to be gravitating to it, to your point.
the interesting thing too is like culturally, it's going to depend on different cultures around the world too. So like here in Japan, yeah, one of the things I play like some AI music and whatnot, and I always say like, wouldn't it be cool if like you were able to wake up every day and like just make a playlist that's like
Yes.
only you hear and that it fits your vibe and your mood,
Yes.
that could have some benefit, right? Doesn't mean that you don't want a real artist to connect with and whatnot too. Absolutely, those real artists still absolutely have their place, right? And they always will, and they'll always be the primary form. But it's a nice kind of beneficial ad. And I always say, like, as a creator, if you're a small creator and you don't have the financial resources or the connections to develop a score, or like for a video game, or know how to code well, but like you have this idea that you want to bring to life, like, isn't it cool that someone like that can bring that to life? Doesn't that kind of democratize the whole like creative landscape in a way? Whenever I say like, hey kids, like, would you ever like listen to a totally synthetic artist? And a lot of them are like, no, no, I would never. And then I show them Hatsune Miku, and they're all like, what the heck is this? And I'm like, Hatsune Miku's been around for
Right.
a decade or so now.
Right.
And like, she's got anime figures. She's not a real person. Like, she's just a Vocaloid that people use, and that's just a fancy word for something basically now is AI, right? And she fills up the Tokyo Dome, and it's like the Gorillas was an artistic, project, right? Where it's like, Daft Punk you could throw in there too, where it's like people go to see a live show of basically just a movie playing on screen while the band's kind of playing in the shadows in the front, right? And there's historical examples of like different artistries and different forms like that people want to connect with over time. But
that's exactly right. I'll even throw in electronic, going back to the 1960s. I mean, some of the core EMD was started with synthetic electronic music. Well, before we go over time, let's land this plane. We always finish with a game called Wrong Answers Only. So the question for today for Wrong Answers Only is, if you were like a judge and you could tell anyone, well, actually anyone around the world, they have to be alive though, you have to force them to be an influencer for any amount of time, who would you assign? For them, that could be punishment or that could be a reward. So you get to you get to decide on if it's punishment or a reward. Who would you force into being an influencer? In wrong answers only. Well, I'll go with okay. We've got a cinemaphile on the hook, so I'll just throw out there. Maybe this isn't the wrong answer, but being someone like Quentin Tarantino's, like seeing the transparency in his life, to know what he says when he knows that there's a camera actually recording or a microphone actually recording. I would love to see what he says when he has to say things that he would normally say when there's not a camera around.
Yeah, I think it's someone who's, like kind of very polished in the entertainment landscape, and I'd probably go with Tom Cruise, because
that's a great one.
He's jumping on couch. There was a period of time there where he was jumping on couches and stuff, and now he's a little too polished.
That's right.
I'd like to see the real Tom Cruise and the real relatable human being, if there's still a relatable human being underneath, the persona of Tom Cruise. But the funny thing about movie stars, and we're doing this, is that there's an argument to say that the mystique of the movie stars died with social media because they're too accessible.
Yep.
And I think you could take that with any movie star, and the more that you put them out on social media, the more Will Smiths you get, the more Dwayne the Rock Johnsons you get, who lie about going to In-N-Out Burger 3 times, in a row for the first time, 3 times in a row. And like, I don't want the movie star to lose their mystique, because I love the movie star. But at the same time, I think it'd be really interesting to take someone who is the quintessential modern movie star and Tom Cruise and see what he's really like behind the scenes.
That's so good. Like a Julia Roberts could be good in there too. Like, she's got to clip her toenails just like everyone else. Well, no, she probably does pay someone else to clip her toenails. Chris, what about you?
I would say, I mean, for me, my first instinct goes to like reclusive musicians, right? I know Lauryn Hill, maybe from the Fuji. It just would be interesting to know a little bit more. But I think kind of to your point, Professor, don't meet your heroes kind of thing. It's like, I'm not so sure I want to see.
I think there's a reason why Tom Cruise is still the highest grossing movie star in the world, and it's because he keeps his life secret.
Yeah.
Chris, I'll throw one out before you land this episode. Neil Young is another good recluse.
Yes.
That would be a good, cut your nails. Let me see what that looks like.
All right. That is it for this week's Marketing Machines and Mischief. Thank you again, Professor Hiler, for joining us and making our show better today. But before everyone goes, jump down into the comments. Let us know who you would forced to influence for a week. We'd love to know your answers there. And while you're down there, click the subscribe button, the likes, all that stuff that they throw in front of you. But before we go, we have a
little lesson learned. Always listen to your marketing professor. Thank you again, Professor, for being on the show. Really appreciate your contribution, and enjoy the rest of your time in Japan.
Thank you so much.
Bye.